Mike Locksley had some really interesting comments about South Carolina.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Maryland's head coach, Mike Locksley, had some very interesting comments, and I think the national media is actually talking about this one a little bit. So I had to dig into this a little bit, I think, talk about the first segment, despite having a big game. We'll get into Indiana in the second two segments, but I wanted to start with this because everyone seems to be talking about Mike Locksley's comments on Zion Elee. Now, you guys all know Zion Elee. I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, there's a 99% chance I would say you guys know Zion Elee, 5-star recruit in the 2026 class. It keeps going up and up and up. In the 2026 class, one of the best players in the nation, arguably the best player in the nation. 247 has him as a top 3 player. Every website has him in the top 3. Edge rusher at a key position group, a freakish athlete out of St. Francis, is committed to Maryland, has been committed to Maryland for a while now, along with him and a couple other guys at St. Francis. Well, I guess one just went away, but a lot of people think Zion Elee is going to be the next big thing. Maryland has some really exciting pass rushers now with Zahir Mathis and Sidney Stewart, but a lot of people think Zion Elee could just be the next just humongous player, not only for Maryland, but just in the Big Ten. When you think of talent and everything, this guy has it at the edge rusher. Could have legit went anywhere in the country. And in today's world, there's a lot of different things that happen with that. With kids like this that have the choice to go anywhere in the country and end up going to a smaller, or not Maryland, I wouldn't say it's a smaller school, but let's be honest with ourselves here. We're not Alabama. We're not Notre Dame. We're not Georgia. We're not Ohio State. Usually, we're not getting these types of players. I don't think any hurting anyone's feelings or anyone's going to be like, no, that's not true. We usually don't get a 5-star type of prospect, and so for when they decide to commit to a school like this, it's definitely interesting for Maryland football. It's definitely interesting for the Terps. And with today's NIL game, the bigger schools are going to come in and they're going to try and do things. And there was already a time where, if you guys remember, Zion Elee didn't almost decide. He basically was going to take like 4 other visits. I forget exactly what the schools were. I think it was like Ohio State, Auburn, South Carolina might have been on there. But he was like, never mind, my commitment's closed down. I'm committed to Maryland. And I'm sure there's a ton of coaches still trying to get him to budge, still trying to get him to flip, all these different things. And the latest has been this. That was a little bit of context, but the latest has been this visit he recently took to South Carolina. So Zion Elee recently took a visit to South Carolina, and Mike Locksley had a very backhanded comment about it that everyone seemed to catch, and it did not blow by anyone. This is what Mike Locksley said about South Carolina and Zion Elee's visit. He said, "Why would I be mad for Zion to make 5 to 10 grand to go down to South Carolina? He's been loyal to this area, loyal to me and the program we've created. We've had constant dialogue." So basically, we'll read, and that's not even a comment we necessarily have to read through the lines. He said it. He said South Carolina is paying him 5 to 10 grand to go down there, which is, in my head, I initially thought when I heard this, before I really was kind of looking at the quote and seeing it, I was like, okay, he probably means that they're paying like it's an official visit. Like when a guy like Zion Elee goes on official visit, there's unofficial and there's officials. Official visits, the colleges pay for everything. They pay for transportation. They pay for your food, a hotel. They pay for every single part of the trip. Unofficial, it's on your own time. It's still like a big deal. You only get a limited amount of official visits, I'm pretty sure. So at first I was like, oh, he means it's an official visit. Like they're just paying for everything for him to go down there. But that's not what Mike Locksley meant by this quote. He basically meant that Maryland or South Carolina football is paying, straight up paying, which isn't a legal part of this. I don't think. Who knows in today's NIL world, but you can't pay a guy to take a visit. But they basically paid him 5 to 10 grand is Locksley's projection. I don't think he knows exactly to go down there and visit. And if I'm South Carolina and I have the opportunity to do that, I'm probably doing that because you never know. A kid like Zion Elee gets on campus, you never know. He might fall in love with it. He might decide this is where I want to be. And he might change his opinion. And that's worth 5 to 10K. A guy like Zion Elee, probably in terms of NIL, we probably going to have to pay him at least, I would think, $500,000. I don't know exactly. I would think at least. I think other schools would be paying him probably upwards of $1 million. And so, I'm like, if that's probably an easy kind of risk play for South Carolina, if that's actually what happened. We don't know exactly, but if they actually paid him like 5 to 10K, and then it's also easy, like that's easy money. That's like you see money on the ground, are you going to take it or not? And a lot of this could just be nice for Zion Elee. He just gets money, gets to go on a free visit. But there is a part of me that is a little tad bit concerned about it because it seems like, yes, Zion Elee's saying the right things. He's committed to Maryland, blah, blah, blah. And we all can believe those things. But we've seen a lot of different cautionary tales in the recruiting world, whether it's Maryland, whether it's other teams, people that I'm home, I'm committed. You guys know the sayings. And next thing you know, I've decided to reopen my commitment, or, oh, they flip. I've decided to commit to Notre Dame now, or something like that. Like you just see that. And so you never know with a kid like Zion Elee, especially with the Maryland team that's not firing on all cylinders right now. We're struggling to get wins after that little win streak we went on at the start of the season. We're struggling to win games. And a kid like Zion Elee can look at a place like South Carolina, who hasn't been great this year either, but they have some money down there. It's SEC. They live, breathe football down there. And so you could look at it and be like, that looks like a nice opportunity over there at South Carolina. And we know there's another dimension to this. We know that Locksley and South Carolina have had a little bit of tension, or there's been tension there. There's been tension there between Beamer, their coach at South Carolina, and Mike Locksley, because Locksley has flipped a couple of kids like Braden Lee, for example, a corner from Maryland football, really high-end recruit at the time, was committed to South Carolina. Locksley flipped him to Maryland. Like there's been some tension. A lot of people say we need to figure it out on the field, which I think would be a really awesome matchup. But the Zion Elee thing's interesting for sure. Who knows what's going to happen with it? Who knows how it's going to go through? But it's definitely something that we're looking at, and it's definitely something that is going to be interesting for Maryland football. So we'll see exactly what happens with those with those kind of relationship. We'll see. I mean, I totally expect Zion Elee to stay committed, but I do want to say there is a little percentage of me is like, I don't think we can ignore that he still went down there. You just never know what's happening behind the scenes, what kind of package they might be trying to get him. Who knows in today's college football world? I think that's part of the reason why this is a little bit off topic, but like a guy like Nick Saban was like, I can't do this world anymore because of stuff like this. It's hard because everything is money based and the world operates around money. And so you can't blame anyone for taking it when it's right in front of you. Let's talk about Indiana versus Maryland. What are the keys for Maryland to actually have a chance against the red hot Indiana Hoosiers? We'll talk about that next. Mazda crafts for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety picks plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the detail. Mazda brings the same attention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. So, Maryland versus Indiana. I think the most intriguing, most interesting games for us this year. It's our best opponent, believe it or not. I feel like I keep sneaky dissing the Indiana team. I don't want to diss them. They're obviously great. I think going into the year, I wasn't sure. Out of them, Michigan, Illinois, I was like, one of those teams will probably be pretty good. I don't know if I thought one of them would be 2 in the country. If I had to guess before the season, I probably would have told you guys that it was Michigan that was 2 in the country. I just wouldn't know. But this Indiana team's the best team we play this year, and I don't think it's particularly close. I think they're better than everyone else on our schedule. And they're kind of making our schedule look a lot tougher than I thought it was originally, when they were kind of ranked in the middle of the top 25. Obviously still good. Like, we would take that any day, but this matchup has become really relevant for Maryland, for Indiana. I think the storyline for us is, can Mike Locksley get a big win? I think we're waiting on that one. That's why he's here. That's why we feel like he's a great coach, because I feel like we're getting to the point with Mike Locksley when it's like, it's getting, I don't want to say it's a bit stale, but it's getting to the point where it's like, we're just waiting for something like electrifying, like something that's going to keep us really excited about the team, to keep us excited about Mike Locksley. And there's just been a lack of that over the past couple of years. And when you get to this point in Mike Locksley, for Maryland athletics, for Maryland football, Locksley's been here for a while. Like, we're going to start to expect him to get something done, for something to really happen. And that just hasn't been a thing yet for Maryland football. So we're waiting on that. That's something that needs to happen for Maryland football, something that we really want to see coming into fruition is getting a big win. And then Indiana, I think this is a spot where it could be a letdown spot. I'm not saying we win the game, but who knows? It could be a letdown spot. You look at the Maryland team, you might think not very good, which a lot of teams are probably saying, a lot of people in the media, but it's kind of your like normal letdown spot. Like, they're on this huge hot streak. They've beaten some really good teams. They just beat a UCLA team. Indiana did, that Maryland lost to, that people thought were kind of America's team because of their concept. They've won a bunch of games. They beat Oregon, who a lot of people thought originally was maybe the best team potentially in the Big Ten. And so they crushed Illinois, who was ranked not too long ago. Like, it's one of those spots where you're like, could Maryland be sneaky this week? You wonder. And I'm not saying 100% it could. I do think there's an opportunity there. I do, for Maryland to potentially do this thing. And if you're ever going to beat a number 2 team in the country, I think this is, like I've been saying, this is the type of number 2 team in the country that you're going to have, that if you're ever going to beat one, this is probably the one you would do it against, in my opinion, because I look at Indiana, and I keep making this comparison, and I'll give a couple of keys after this. I think of Indiana as a team that is really well coached, really well disciplined, really talented in spots. But usually when I think of the number 2 team in the country, I think like, oh, yeah, that's the Georgia Bulldogs. They have or not 8 first-round picks. They have 3 or 4 first-round picks, another 3 or 4 guys that will go on day 2. They have a bunch of different high-end 5-star guys that are on their bench for depth. Like, I think of that when I think of number 2 team in the country. And that's not Indiana. This team's really well coached, really well disciplined. They might have the number 1 pick in the country, but I don't look at them. I'm like, yeah, they have 4 first rounders. They have 4 day 2 guys. Like, and that's not all that matters, obviously. I just don't think, what I'm trying to get to is, I don't think they're just going to straight out talent us. I don't think they're just going to go in there and like just be so much more talented than us. I think they're more talented. I do think they're more talented, but I don't think it's like a typical gap you get with the number 2 team in the country, where it's just such a big gap where we don't even have a shot. I don't think that's a thing. I think if Mike Locksley has a decent game plan, or not a decent game plan, has a really good game plan, we could potentially be in it, because they're really well coached. Indiana is. If a couple of things go our way and Mike Locksley coaches us the right way, we could be in it in the fourth quarter. I don't think that's unreasonable to say versus like if we played a team like Ohio State last year who ended up being the best, but like when they were like a borderline, like I'm trying to think of last year. I know they won, but they ended up being like what, the eighth best team in the country going into the playoffs. But when they were around that 2 ranking, Ohio State last year would have been like, I just don't know if we can keep up with these. Like they got 3 first rounders, probably going to be pro ballers at receiver. Like all 3 of those guys last year might have been pro ballers. Like Emeka Mbuka looks like one now. Jeremiah Smith, everyone thinks is the next best thing. And then Carnell Tate, people are saying might be the best receiver in this year's draft. So it's like, and they have another couple guys on their defensive line. They have a corner that's going in the first round. Like it's overwhelming. Where this Indiana team, they have some really good football players. I just don't think they have that. And so I think this is and that to me is a key. It's all about Mike Locksley. This is a Mike Locksley game to me. We know that Indiana's better than us. We know that. We know they have more players. They might have the number 1 pick in the draft with the Mendoza kid. They might have the Heisman as well. That very well might be a thing for Indiana football, which is very exciting. But to me, it's going to be about coaching to stay in this game. If Mike Locksley coaches his team at a high level, which we haven't seen much of over the career of Mike Locksley at a level to beat a ranked opponent, but if Maryland has a certain level of game plan, I'm not saying we win it. I'm not saying we lose by single digits. I'm saying there could be opportunity potentially heading into the fourth quarter. We might still lose by 20, but it might be a 7-point ball game heading into the fourth quarter with every opportunity to win it. I think of Michigan. Think of Michigan a couple years ago at Maryland, just like this game against Indiana, where it was at Maryland. And Michigan came into that. That was the year they won the national championship. Michigan, really good football team that year. Obviously, J.J. McCarthy. They ran the ball down your throat with Blake Corum, Edwards. Like that team was legit. The interesting part about it was that Maryland actually played Michigan like one of their, I think it was like their second closest game of the year to Alabama's OT game. It reminds me a little bit of that. It's a little bit of that where you get them at home if you're Maryland. Maryland had a really good game plan. Their QB played well, which we'll talk about next, because I think this is a really awesome quarterback matchup. And Talia played well, and we scored some points, created some turnover. Next thing you know, Michigan, the best team in the country that won the national championship that year, is on the ropes at a Maryland team that ain't ranked, that is going for a bowl game, not like we weren't ranked or anything like that at the end of the season, but you guys know what I mean? It kind of is like giving off of that where you tip your cap to the Maryland team there and you're like, we had an opportunity to win that game. Michigan just ended up doing it. So I do think there's an opportunity for it to be similar to that a little bit. I do want to talk about this QB matchup. A couple really good QBs going at it. This is a really good opportunity for Malik Washington potentially to put himself back kind of in the lead for Big Ten Freshman of the Year, but also get a huge win that Slee was never able to get. Talk about that next. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game, or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to the fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into same game parlays for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And right now, FanDuel's giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So we had this weekend Malik Washington versus Fernando Mendoza, the kid from Indiana that we all think, or a lot of people think, is going to potentially be the Heisman winners and potentially going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. Supremely talented quarterback. I'm really high on him. I think he's a big reason why this Indiana's team has a chance to win it all. I don't think they'll win it all. I think they have a slight opportunity to do it, and he's a big reason why. Last year I just didn't think their quarterback could get it done. I think they have that position at the quarterback position where his dual threat ability some of the throws he makes, it's like it's hard not to like. And it's going to be tough to stop him if you look at his numbers this year. 1,900 yards, 72% completion, 24 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. It's one thing to be slinging around. It's another thing to be slinging around while not turning over the ball. Like, that's another level of quarterback that just doesn't really doesn't always happen for people. And to compare to Malik Washington has 11 touchdowns to Fernando's 24 touchdowns and has 3 interceptions, same amount of interceptions, and similar yardage, 1,716 for Malik and 1,900 for Indiana Fernando Mendoza. And give props to Malik Washington, because to have a similar stat line as Fernando Mendoza right now in terms of everything except for the touchdowns is honestly huge, because Indiana does have more around him. They have a really talented receiver that a lot of people are high on. And so I think it is something that is huge for Maryland football. Or for Malik Washington as well. So I'm really kind of intrigued by this quarterback battle, because you got the freshman versus the kid Fernando Mendoza that's been around a little bit, that transferred from Cal, and a lot of people think he's going to be really good. And so I want to say a couple things about Malik in this game. If Malik plays well, I think the country, I don't want to say like everyone's going to be watching Maryland versus Indiana, but I think people will have this game on. I think this is a game people will have tabs on. And people have already kind of like the early season hype from Malik Washington was kind of insane. I think it sizzled down a little bit for sure. Like people were saying he was the best freshman in college football. I think it sizzled down for sure. But I think if Malik ends up playing at a high level in this game, win or lose, and it ends up being like a quarterback battle back and forth, and somehow maybe Indiana pulls it off at the end, but Malik still looked really good, that'll be huge for Maryland football and Maryland football stock, and for his stock, for his future, good or bad for Maryland football, because who knows? Georgia could come in and say, hey, we like that kid Malik, but obviously we hope and pray that doesn't happen. And so we're looking at Malik as a guy that could do some big things for the Terps potentially in this matchup. And if you do it against a kid, in Fernando Mendoza, that's been putting it on, and somehow outplay him, and for Maryland to win, it very well might have to be Malik Washington outplaying Fernando Mendoza. That might just have to be what it is. Like, if crazy things are going to happen, you need a crazy if you want a crazy outcome, you're probably going to need some crazy things to happen. And I don't think that's like insane. I think they're similar in terms of their talent level. Fernando just has a better team around him and is also more seasoned. I think they're both supremely talented, but I do think Malik doesn't have the team around him, doesn't have the run game around him, but can make similar throws, similar athleticism. Like, they're honestly pretty similar types of QBs, I feel like. Like, can run, but like go to the pass game first. So I do think that's going to be an interesting matchup that everyone's going to have their eyes on, that everyone's going to be really keyed in on, and that we're going to see what kind of happens with that. And so I'm excited to watch those two go at it. I'm excited to see Indiana football, but I think Maryland's run game is gotta help out Malik Washington. Indiana's run game's helping out Fernando Mendoza. And we're going to see Roman Hemby, and that'll be interesting to see Roman Hemby play against Maryland. That's going to be kind of weird for a little bit, but he's having a pretty good season over there, so probably a good move. Our run game doesn't seem to be going, so I can assure you he'd probably be more productive in that Indiana offense. So I do think that'll be interesting as well. So we'll see how that goes too. But that's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure they can subscribe here every day talking about Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.